We're talking about a flawed view of the church. Now, one of the problems I think that exists is sometimes people judge the church which belongs to Jesus Christ, the church of Christ, based upon their individual preference. Now, they may not see it that way, but you see, they judge the church based on the size of its membership. Well, that's just a small little nothing church, just a bunch of old people there. Or they judge the church based upon the programs or the programs that they do not have. Or they judge the church based upon the appearance of their worship or the dynamics of their leadership or the lack of the dynamics of their leadership. But here's one of the things I think people do. Oftentimes they judge the church of Christ, the church which belongs to Christ, based upon the religious confusion around them. They say, well, look at this group. This group does this. Why doesn't the Church of Christ do this? Here's the bottom line. There is an ideal laid out within the pages of the Bible, and it's not up to our preference. And what we need to do is not look around and get a consensus of what people think, but what does the Bible say? In Galatians chapter 1, Paul deals very strongly with the fact that we cannot go on our preferences. I want you to look at verse 6. He's dealing with the concept of the gospel. And you see, there are many people out there that says, well, we shouldn't be trying to ask people to be baptized for the forgiveness of their sins. But listen to Paul. Listen to this principle here about whether or not we have the right to change something based upon our preferences. Galatians 1 verse number 6, I marvel that you're turning away so soon from Him who called you in the grace of Christ to a different gospel, which is not another, but there are some who trouble you and want to pervert the gospel of Christ. It ought to be clear we can't pervert the gospel of Christ. Verse number 8, but even if we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel to you than what we have preached to you, let him be accursed. And then he goes on and he says, we can't do this. I want you to notice something that he includes in this gospel. If you look over at Galatians chapter 3 and verse number 27, he says, for as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. Now, it's an interesting thing. In Ephesians chapter 1, verse 3, he says that the spiritual blessings are in Christ in the church. He says in the heavenlies, which is the church. Spiritual blessings are in Christ. Galatians chapter 3, verse number 27, he says that's how we get into Christ. And someone says, baptism's not important. Listen. Galatians 1 and verse 6 and following says, we can't change the gospel based on our preferences. We have to follow the ideal which is laid out within the pages of the Bible. Join us again.